Hi, and welcome back. In this video, we will explore a systematic way of how to create product backlog items. The model that we're going to use is called the 3C model. Why 3 Cs? Because it has 3 steps and every single one of those steps starts out with a C. Let's look at step number 1. This is our card. And the card is an analogy for a bigger post-it note or for an index card. And on that card, you usually start out writing a user story. As a, who am I want, what do I want, so that, why do I want it? That user story helps us to focus on the most essential elements of a requirement. And when we do that, we also deliver the big picture to everyone who reads that specific user story. But a user story is not the only way on how to write a requirement on a card. You can use many other ways. My preference is a user story. By the way, a user story is also a great stakeholder management tool because most stakeholders approach you with the what piece of a requirement and never with the why piece. So if you want to have a good understanding of whether it makes sense to build that requirement and how to prioritize it, always ask them to write it as a user story. Now, once we have that user story, we don't throw it over the fence. The user story has 2 pieces. The user, which is every user story is user-centric, and the story, which means that it needs to be told. And every user story, based on the inventors, is a placeholder for a conversation. And that conversation is our second step. Usually, it happens between a product owner and the developers. From time to time, you can engage a key stakeholder in that conversation as well. And that conversation goes the following way. The developers read the user story, and we can refer back to our summer meadow exercise, and they get a good understanding of what our product owner actually wants. Then they start asking questions. So, dear product owner, you mentioned blue and red flowers. Do you mean one flower that is blue and red, or do you mean blue flowers and red flowers? With every question, the product owner can give an answer to the developers, either saying, I want this, and then be very specific about what they want, so making the decision themselves, or delegating the decision towards the developers, saying, you are the experts on this, I trust you, make that decision. A third scenario is that the product owner says, great question, I have no idea. Let me go back to my stakeholders and check with them. And then it's really good if you have a few days' time between product backlog refinement, which is the piece where this conversation takes place, and your next sprint planning, when you have to determine how much work fits into our sprint. The outcome of that conversation is documented in the confirmation, which is the third and last step of the 3C model. That confirmation, in most cases, has either the user story at the top or a shortened version of that, and at the bottom it has all the acceptance criteria, all the details that we agreed on during our conversation. Ideally, the developers have also made an estimate on how much work goes into delivering this specific item, which helps the product owner make better prioritization decisions. So card, conversation, and confirmation result in a shared understanding between product owners and developers in terms of the big picture and the details. The confirmation at the end with all the acceptance criteria and ideally an estimate is considered a ready product backlog item. And that ready product backlog item can be selected during our next sprint planning to be implemented in the next sprint. I hope this brief video gives you a good understanding that product backlog items are not created by one person, but co-created by the team. It all starts out with a brief description of the big picture, usually by the PO, and then goes into a conversation where the details of that requirement are explored collectively between the product owner and the developers.